Kamala's terrible interview is now being reflected in the polls, and you can see this over from Kalshi, also reflected in Polymarket. The numbers keep deviating from each other. Trump's going up, Kamala's coming down, and you can see the story in the numbers right here. So it looks like Kamala, you can almost just game this out in your brain. The day of the debate with Brett Baer, and we've got clips coming up about how terrible it was and reaction and more from J.D. Vance and President Trump. But here's the story, right? So it's October 16th. Kamala's going to be having this great interview with Fox News. Everybody's jazzed about it. It's 5 a.m. in the morning. People are thrilled. Wow, she's so tough and brave. She's so amazing. She's going to come out there and really deliver. She's going into the lion's den. Trump never does any hard interviews. Media loves him, whatever. Going up and up and up and up and up. You can see it right there. Kamala's going up. Trump's coming down. It's going to change the whole election. Everything's going to invert. Then 3 p.m. comes across. Now, I'm in Arizona, so 3 p.m. my time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, which means the interview drops. And then Kamala goes down. She was up at 46 at the climax yesterday. Now she's back down to 43. 3-point swing. Same thing happens in reverse for Trump. Trump's at the low point yesterday. Fox News interview goes out. Boom. Trump is up now to 57. The great collapse continues. And so the market's obviously responding. Polymarket is doing the same. See, the same thing happened yesterday, and we're waking up this morning to some major divergences in the polls. So they got to be unhappy about this. This was supposed to reverse course. The problem is Kamala's terrible. She's not a competent person, and she performed exactly as we expected her to perform, which was terribly. And that's why we're so excited that she's out there talking to everybody, becoming an actual nominee who's talking to people. We want her to talk to more people because she's terrible. It's great for our side. Now, J.D. Vance has a good suggestion for Democrats out there. He says, to my Democrat friends, maybe you should consider swapping Kamala Harris for Joe Biden. AD. All right. So that might be a better idea because Kamala is basically where Joe Biden was. She's in the same spot, and it's not looking good for them. Joe Biden had a much better shot in Pennsylvania and some of these other places, but Kamala may have a hard time. And by the way, Joe Biden has an excuse, okay? He's old, and he's been in Washington for 40, 50 years. His brain is like applesauce. So now we have a situation where Kamala doesn't have that excuse. So what is her problem? Now, election betting odds. This is a fun website that aggregates a bunch of different markets. You can see Betfair, S Markets, Predicted, Polymarket, Kalshi, all of them are on here. And this is something we check regularly on our Membo streams in the morning. But you'll see the numbers here just continue to diverge. This is about as big as we've ever seen it, 57 to 41. Some polls are showing, or some markets are showing Trump up 60. And I do hesitate to say, to even share this stuff, because I don't want our side getting complacent. I want everybody to be voting very aggressively. And your boy's got his ballot right over there. We're going to be filling that out this weekend and getting that in. Maybe we'll be doing that together. But we've got a lot happening here. Obviously, the numbers are swinging massively towards President Trump. Even these blue wall states are looking pretty good for Trump. We've got Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, all looking redder and redder by the day. So good stuff there. And we'll keep our eyes on it, but it's not a time to get complacent. Now, the Trump team, very excited about this. They called it a train wreck news interview. True. Says that her interview with Brett Baer was a train wreck. Kamala was angry, defensive, once again abdicated any responsibility for the problems Americans are facing today. She couldn't give a straight answer to a single question because she has no answers. Kamala's entire campaign is based on lies about President Trump. Kamala can't handle the pressure of an interview with Fox News. She certainly can't handle the pressure of being president of the United States. Caroline Leavitt, Trump campaign press secretary for Trump. Now, Trump was also out here posting about this. He said, great job by Brett Baer in his interview with Lion Kamala Harris. She has a massive and irredeemable case of Trump derangement syndrome. So bad, in fact, that she was barely able to talk about any subject other than the man who had the best economy ever, the strongest border in history, and who just got the unanimous endorsement of the U.S. Border Patrol. Guess who got all those things? Me! Their endorsement was a tremendous honor. They said that Comrade Kamala did a terrible job, the absolute worst in memory, and can't be allowed to do it again. She is also the worst vice president in history, but will soon be gone. Again, congratulations to Brett Baer on a tough but very fair interview, one that clearly shows how totally incompetent Kamala is. For the good of our nation, her inferior cognitive ability must be tested at once, says President Trump. And we saw her cognitive ability tested yesterday. Didn't work out so well. Here is one example of that, where Kamala is saying, yeah, I've been in charge, but Trump's been running, and so blame him and stop asking me hard questions.
Frankly, exhausted of Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But
people
you're the
have
lever of
become,
power.
but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, frankly, exhausted.
A lot of it was like that, just back and forth. You know what I'm talking about. No, we really don't know what you're talking about. Here was a longer excerpt from the exchange on the border, which is where they started and really spent the bulk of the interview, mostly about the border. And I've got some other clips. Apparently, Brett says she showed up late. Her people were back there. Cut it. Please stop this interview. And it was quite short. It was like 26 minutes, I think. And they showed up late and it was a scandal. But here is a longer exchange when they got started.
Premise. Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Brett,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred.
That's right.
That is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungari's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
Do you want to answer
in all fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
Okay, I guess are you accepting responsibility, or is this, I'm sorry for your loss, right? That nice thing you say when you go to a funeral. Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss, right? Okay, yeah. I have nothing to do with it. I had no responsibility for that at all. And what's so interesting is they always go back to this border policy bill. When did the illegal immigrants come in who murdered those young women? Did they all come in and murder them in the last 9 months? Like it all happened only because the Republicans didn't pass that bill? Or are the consequences of immigration much broader than that? They are much broader than that. As that mom just declared to us, it is a situation where they're letting them in and releasing them. And we went through the spreadsheet, the charts here, hundreds of thousands of criminals let into the country and let out, tens of thousands of murderers let out that we've seen. And the numbers are insane, not to mention the 300,000 kids that are all missing and gone. So is she going to apologize for that too? And all the victims that they've created and enabled there, is she going to apologize for that? Pretty brutal exchange. And it's interesting, she did apologize. I'm sure her staff was not happy about that. And you can tell that she's having a hard time. Now, Brett Baer got her a little caught up on this one, talking about Trump being unstable. She's got very amazing skills of observation. She can sense Trump's demented from afar. She's like Spider-Man. She's got spidey senses. She can tell when somebody is off a little bit in their mental acuity. She can just feel it in her bones. So did she notice that with Joe for the last 4 years?
He's unstable.
Unstable?
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not. You say he's mentally not stable?
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this.
And
you told
we
many
should all be
interviewers
concerned
that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
after George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have been concerned about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
All right. So she's just got reversed on that. She obviously is like a clinical psychologist. She can tell how Trump's mental acuity is, but she was not able to observe Joe Biden and his demented brain for 4 years, and was in the same room with him, vouching for him, saying the guy's doing cartwheels all over everybody while she was slamming back her vodkas or whatever she does. But this was a pretty brutal interview. She struggled with it, and there were some fact checks here. The GOP came out with this one. She had this line, "I would never, ever call the American people stupid." Too bad you already have.
So are they misguided, the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid.
You hear that, young people? You hear that, young college people? That's what Kamala thinks of you. Now, Brett Baer was also saying that they delayed the interview. They were trying to ice the kicker, trying to throw him off, brought it out right before the interview started because they were trying to squeeze everything in before the 6 o'clock hour. Here's Brett.
Dana, I'll give you a little behind the scenes here. I know you love this, and it fits in with Dana Reed Sports. When the kicker in football, they call a timeout right before he's going to kick the field goal. They're icing the kicker. So we were supposed to start at 5 p.m. We this was the time they gave us. Originally, we were going to do 25 or 30 minutes. They came in and said maybe 20. So it was already getting whittled down. And then the vice president showed up about 5:15. We were pushing the envelope to be able to turn it around for the top of the 6 o'clock. That's how it started. And I could tell when we started talking that she was going to be tough to redirect without me trying to interrupt. I did this with President Obama. At one point, I just said, Mr. President, I know you like the filibuster. I just didn't even have the chance to sometimes redirect in those ways. I had a lot of other questions.
So what a missed opportunity for them, right? So I don't know what she had before. Well, I know she had that one event right before, but what's more important than this interview today on your campaign schedule?
They don't want to talk to you.
If your goal as a candidate at this point is to win the day, win the news cycle of the day, then your interview with Fox is arguably your most important issue. And I think you could tell at the end that you were having to rush through it so that you could get to the top of the show, and you were trying to be respectful of their time. But it would have been really interesting for her to be able to say to her team, no.
Yeah, we could go for another hour if you want to, right? No problem at all. Happy to talk to you. But they really couldn't do that. In fact, they actually had to hurry it up. And here was that exchange from Barrett when they were like cutting him off in the background here.
I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things
There's more to say. I have
there
much more to
are
say,
a lot of
actually.
things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and
Yes.
that's why we
I
invited
invite
you.
everyone to go to kamalaharris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
And that's why
intend in our economy.
to see where you were in 2019 and
to
where you are
support
now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
And
they're giving me a hard rap.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, giving me a hard rap here. And then Brett Baer came out and explained that this is how they shoot him out of there.
Dana, you've been on the other side. You've been on the rapper as a press secretary interviewing a president. And I'm talking like 4 people waving their hands like it's got to stop. So Martha, I had to dismount there at the end. There's so many things. And she maybe should do more of these. Madam Vice President,
And
they're giving me a hard rap.
I thank you for the time.
Yeah, they don't want her to do any more of those because this is what happens when she does. Oh, and it just keeps going. Isn't that fun? It just keeps going and going. Oh, no. You think she's going to do Rogan now? No, obviously not. That would be terrible for them. So here, meanwhile, while all this is happening, President Trump was out there actually talking to people about things that matter because he's a real candidate in person.
Hello, President Trump.
Great answer. So 2 things, growths and cutting. We're going to grow the heck out of this place and we're going to cut the heck out of the bad stuff. It's going to be great. We've got a new golden age that we are on the precipice of entering. The election is right around the corner. Get those ballots filled out, baby. And let's take this thing past the finish line.